What is going on? Welcome back to Jiu-Jitsu Outlet. I'm here with Brandon Shaefer. Brandon, you have trained in what sounds like a lot of martial arts, a lot of different styles. And I read your bio. It sounds like you're a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I want to hear about that. I want to hear about how this has impacted you. But I know you're also a law enforcement professional. So first of all, man, thank you for being like one of those police officers who's willing to train, and learn the martial arts and get better, because I know there's a lot of people who aren't. They're not willing to do that. So thank you for being a great example, just off the bat. Thank you for your service, man. So I just want to get into this, bro. Like, what has this done for you? What has training in martial arts done for you and your mental health over the years that you've been training?
Right on. Thanks for letting me, Paul. Appreciate it. Well, almost as long as I've been in martial arts, I've been a public servant, and I was fortunate enough to know kind of my direction when what I wanted to do. Right, that I wanted to be in public service, that I wanted to help other people. My upbringing was a little rough, right, as most people have their different challenges as they're going through, and so there's just an accumulation of things that could happen, that happen to you along your road. And through compartmentalization, you sometimes suppress things instead of like meeting them head on, right? So we have this outcome that comes sometimes in the form of like depression, anxiety, things like that. And so I found that through the martial arts being an outlet for me, that I was able to continue to function as a member of society, instead of maybe being, kind of isolated by, off by yourself, thinking that you're the only one that's in the fight. And it's been a huge part of my life. I've been involved in martial arts longer than I've been a man of faith. My greatest mentors have come through martial arts and in humanity, to, I guess, to just to me personally, and then those around me. Like the first examples of people who weren't trying to take something from you, right? And so I always emulate that, and I think that's what was a big leader or a big driving force to me wanting to be a public servant.
Man, that's awesome. And I love that you said that it's basically sounds like it was the foundation of everything. And I had the same experience, man. Like for me, martial arts is just the foundation of everything that I've ever achieved or ever will go on to achieve. And that's why I love it. That's why I love this doing this podcast and connecting with people like you. Let me ask you this, man. Can you compare like who were you before you started training versus who were you today? Like, can you take us through that evolution?
Well, I'll say the two driving forces in my life, right? Martial arts and my faith, right? And those are the two driving forces. Before I had either one of those, you probably would not have liked me as a person very much. When you don't have guides to your spiritual walk, right, you tend to emulate what you think culture and society is around you. And it was what I saw was a very dog eat dog world, right? When it's survival of the fittest, can you take, the only reason you don't have things is because you're not strong enough to take them from other people, or you're not strong enough to hold them from other people. Well, that's a very, very ugly, animal. There's some very ugly byproducts that come out of that. So you take that guy and you stand him next to this guy, and I would say I'd kick that guy out of my house, right? I wouldn't allow that guy around my family. I wouldn't want that guy to be involved in any of my circle groups whatsoever. And then I take the guy that you have before you today, and having structure in your life, having camaraderie, I mean, that's huge, right? Whether it's the military or it's in the martial art world or public service, like having a group of people that you can connect to, that are looking for you to better yourself, right? I think all martial arts have that ideology of wanting you to better yourself. Jiu-Jitsu, to me, has been the longest acting one, right? They're not looking for immediate gratification. They're not looking for just this explosion of motivation. They're looking for this change in your life that comes through discipline. And I think that's one of the the coolest things that I've ever experienced. That is, most martial arts, all you need is mass times acceleration, right? Like when you come into fighting or competing, if you can generate enough force fast enough onto a target, you're going to excel in it, right? Compared to the person that comes in just because they're looking for a workout. Jiu-jitsu is, in the unique aspect, is not like that at all. Like you can have all the motivation in the world and get absolutely nowhere with jiu-jitsu because it takes discipline and consistency. So when you take that and you attach that to your life, to as you walk, it's not about what can I get today? What can I get today? Why am I not where I should be today? It's about the building blocks of making yourself better. So it's no longer a need to acquire something quickly. It's through the patience and looking and knowing eventually I'll get where I need to go. And where I need to go is the end road for Brandon. Not the end road for my instructors, not the end road for the people that are around me, not me having to compare myself to other people around me to feel better about myself. It's trusting that I'm going to get where I'm going if I can just love the journey. That's one of the things my professor says to me is enjoy the journey, embrace the journey, not the end result. And I love that because when you're not looking for the next belt level, the next trophy, the next world title, when you're not looking for those anymore, you can love today. And I found that I was always hoping for the top of the mountain. I want to get to the top of the mountain. And the disappointing part was like, as soon as I'd get to the top of a mountain, I would be like, okay, that was great. I move it out of the way. Where's the next mountain that I could climb? And I'm not really living in the in between. And I think martial arts gives us, particularly jiu-jitsu, gives us an opportunity to love the mile markers in between. And I think that's what's awesome. So when I say the guy before to the guy you are today, I would hope I'm the kind of guy that you would ask to come over and hang out and kick it. But the guy that I was before, you probably wouldn't want anything to do with that guy. I know I don't.
Man, that's powerful. That's a powerful statement that you would kick out of your house the former version of yourself compared with who you are today. That's powerful. And man, especially I know as you being a police officer, you know about the kind of people that you would kick out of the house. Like you probably had to kick people out of the house many times. So you know, you going from being one of those people to being the guy probably helping to remove people such as your former self. That's a powerful, like a karmic growth, you know, or almost like you're completing some cycle, you know, and then I bet as you grow, you're now mentoring people, you know, now you're stepping up into where you're a role model for the police officer, you know, and it's like just continuing to climb, man. And how old are you right now?
So I just turned 40, right?
Okay.
Kind of a
That's awesome,
leeway,
man.
segue into what you just said about law enforcement and mentoring other people, right? So there is a major lack of self-confidence, true confidence in law enforcement, right? It's true confidence. It's this ego that we see displayed a lot of times. And I try to cut through that immediately, whether it's in the training academy, when I was training new officers, or now in the living the day-to-day. I want them to know that it's okay not to have to be the gorilla at the top of the tree beating their chest, right? To the contrary, that's not going to serve you in the long run or your community in the long run because it makes you very, very off-putting. But through mentorship, I find that continual training with the officers around me brings them to a place of true confidence, right? Where it's not about in my head, how great do I think I would be in a fight? And then I have this chip on my shoulder where I have to go out and try to prove that so that I can accept who I am to myself. But through real training comes real confidence and the chip starts to alleviate. So what I tell young cops is that if you come and you train with me, right, not only will you eliminate your ego, but you're going to find a better version of yourself where you're not lying to yourself about who you are. And then there's no need to feel like you have to prove that to yourself. So you can look at it from both ways. So I tell the type A's, right? And there's a lot of type A's in law enforcement. Is like, man, I no longer seek the engagement on the street. And One, because there is no referee anymore, right? There is nobody to call stop to this. The stakes are way too large. But the second time is I get nothing, almost nothing out of that. I would almost be expected to win the majority of the physical engagements that I encounter, the physical confrontations that I've encountered, because I'm trained. And the average male isn't, the average person isn't. So even if I get a victory here, right, which that is an ugly term, but if I win here, if I win my life here, I don't really win anything. It's just a lack of punishment, right? Reward would be something that I obtain, right? So if I win, somebody tries to assault me and I suppress that and I put them in handcuffs, I didn't win anything. There was just a lack of punishment. There was a lack of negative because everything that I already had, I already had. So let's remove the chip. There, if I want to prove yourself, or you as a, I would say as a cop wants to prove yourself, then why don't you prove yourself against other trained practitioners? Why don't you prove yourself against people who actually know how to defend themselves, who actually know how to fight? And you're in there grinding and you're getting smashed, or you're learning to get to the top, right? And you're going through this, what I call the grinder. When you come out on the other side, you start to look at people a little different. And there's no real value in the conflict over there. So when that true confidence comes, you'll see what I call the decline of attitude, the decline of ego that we all see in jiu-jitsu, right? Like for you to have a massive ego in jiu-jitsu, especially when you start out, like you're setting yourself up for a big fall, right? Humility is coming, humbleness is coming. But when you walk out there in a uniform, and you don't have any ego, it is so cool how the world of the public servant opens up to you because you can connect to more to people. It's not about that, do I need to prove myself? It's not about, is everybody around me always trying to kill me? You know, there are those people, and yes, you always have to be ready for those things. But most of the people that you meet in the world are going to be the same as most of the people that you encounter on the mats. And it's only through seeing people outside of the view of the cop can you see, like, this guy's just a computer programmer, dude. This guy's just a mason, but he's a good dude. You know, this guy's just a mechanic, but he's just a good dude. And I think that's very, very cool that happens with training, especially with from cops.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, man, because dude, honestly, there's no place that I ever hang out with police officers other than jiu-jitsu. That's the only venue that me, an average, like I work online, you know, I do business development. Like the only place that I hang out with cops is on the mats. I'm not just like, or at the gym. Sometimes at the gym, there's some cops at the gym, but you get what I'm saying. Most of the ones that I've met and like developed a friendship with is through jiu-jitsu. My first jiu-jitsu instructor, Mike Johnson, was is a black belt. I think he actually just got his second degree under Pedro Sauer. But yeah, so you know that was my introduction to jiu-jitsu was through a police officer, and he's now a lieutenant. So there are those people who are kind of those great examples. But I wanted to ask you this, like, let's say you were made Lord Commander of all police in the United States. Like you know, the president called you and said, Brandon, I saw the podcast. I was watching Jiu-Jitsu Outlet. I love what you have to say about how jiu-jitsu can help the cops. We want to make a new office, Lord Commander of Police. And your only job is you're going to introduce jiu-jitsu and the martial arts to every police force in the world. Like, how would you go about this? What would be your way of introducing this?
Right on. So I would reject the title of Lord Commander. I'd prefer something more like Supreme Allied Guard Commander or something. But
I like that. That's good.
High, right? The Lord's a little high.
Supreme Allied Guard Commander. That's good. I like that. We'll go with that.
All right. There is no replacement for jiu-jitsu and law enforcement. Jiu-jitsu is for everybody in all walks of life, but I think the necessity for our first responders is it's unmeasurable. Like there is no replacement for it. So the normal progress for a cadet going through the academy is they have this physical fitness test that they have to do, right? And physical fitness is great, but when it comes to the warrior, physical fitness is one side of the coin. The other side of the coin to me is technical application and ability. And so we spend all this time in the academy of getting them to run this, this 2-mile run. We get them to row this so many push-ups, so many sit-ups. And it's good that we're having them do that, because physical fitness has its own benefits to mental health. But how about instead of every day that you're doing PT, every other day you're doing jiu-jitsu? That would be the first thing that I would change. For the 618 hours that you have to go through the basic peace officer academy in Texas, and it may have just changed to 720 if I'm not mistaken, but every other day instead of PT, you have defensive tactics training, and they're heavy in jiu-jitsu base. Every human being walking the face of the earth, Paul, has an inherent ability to punch and kick. Right? If you corner somebody enough, they're going to punch and kick. Now, they won't be able to do it well, right? If they're not trained, they won't be like Floyd Mayweather, but they will, punch and they'll kick. Jiu-jitsu is a longer road to hoe, but it has the good fruit that you can bring from it through longevity. And so don't teach people how to punch and kick right off the bat. Let's teach cops how to control people, right, with minimal amounts of force, how to smother the fire initially, and then toward the end of it, we'll clean up the punching and kicking, because that stuff to me comes standard equipped. Now, when you look at generational differences, I'd say that that our grandfathers at 18 would probably smoke the wills out of us than our generation right now at 18 when it comes to physical conflict. But for cops, you have to introduce control tactics. And tell me of another martial art out there that's greater at controlling another human being while limiting the potential for injury for both parties. Show me another one. Show me another one and I'll entertain it. If it's out there, I've never trained in it, and I've trained in almost everything that we've had out there that we've been able to produce. So as Supreme Allied Guard Commander of our Law Enforcement Unified Services, Jiu-Jitsu and martial art training would be required on a bi-daily basis.
I love that. I think that's really good. And I want to explore this just a little more, because I'm really interested by this question. And I hope you for me, I'm all about actually putting these things together. I really think that this kind of stuff is possible. Obviously, we're being kind of facetious about Supreme Allied Guard Commander, but what I'm saying is we might be able to put together some sort of a thing. There might be another police officer listening, or maybe there's a lieutenant listening who's like, you know what, we can actually make this happen. So you never know where podcasts like this will go or conversations like this will go. I was actually just talking to another police officer on a previous episode about what we could do to get this into the schools. So there's all sorts of partnerships. You never know where this kind of stuff, these conversations might go, man. But I just want to get into this. How do you think that we could structure these sorts of classes so there's less injury? Because that was the big problem in the military. I was a military police officer, and I would always try to get us to do more combatives. And my commander would always say no because of the risk of injury. And it was true, because the way that they did Army combatives is their high risk of injury. There's a lot of sparring. Yeah, they just go at it. So how would you, again, we're going to stick with this example for just a minute longer, then we'll get back to reality. But as Supreme Allied Guard Commander, how would you reduce the risk of injury? What would these classes actually look like?
So you have to establish mile markers along the final goal, right? So we can all agree that if we could all agree, which I think the majority of those who are practitioners would agree, that the final goal is to gain confidence and ability and techniques that limit injuries for the citizen and for the officer themselves, right? If we can all agree on that, then let's take a step back as we see this big thing, and then let's dive into one section at a time. What are the individual markers that we can use to show that we're accomplishing the right goal? And number one, it's structure. You have to have structure, right? You may go into a school dojo and you may immediately go into rolling, right? But for the most part, a lot of them are starting this essentials program in some way, shape, or form, and you're starting to build these techniques, and through trust, that eventually you're starting to get into the rolling. So you don't just bring two guys who know nothing and you tell them, hey, go at it, right? Let's just go at it and see how you do, and we'll teach you the techniques along the way. They should have very structured individual techniques that they're drilling. We would equate that as practitioners to maybe positional drilling, right? That there is a beginning position and that there's an end position. And after we get to that position, we're going to call index. We're going to stop right there. And then our instructors are our safeties, our roving safeties. A lot of times, cops, trainers, they like to get in the mix, and they're going to show you everything that they know. And it's something that we did to ourselves back in the 80s in law enforcement that was atrocious, is that there was this like, hurry up, get them in cuffs, hurry up. And through doing that, like, we put a clock on them, and that increases the risk of injury, the violation of civil rights, right? The lack of recognition of improper use of force. We ain't got nothing but time, right? And so I say in that, take us off the clock. We structure a training regimen, right? And we go through piece at a time and then blocks. And those should be reflected in your lesson plans. If you're a police officer right now, and you're a police trainer right now, and you're listening into this, and you don't have a structure, if you don't have a training curriculum that's broken down by piece of everything that you're teaching, stop right now. Because when you have two cadets, or you and another cadet go at it, and there's an injury, you just set us back a decade. Because we're gonna have to wait for the administration to trust us again, to allow us to put this in piece by piece. Enough of them hearing it from their battle buddies, other commanders, that, yeah, we need to give this jiu-jitsu thing another shot. It's easy to be passionate about this. It's very, very easy to be passionate about this. And you may have the best of intentions leading into this, but intentions don't get us there, right? We have to structure. We have to build safety blocks. If you entered jiu-jitsu as a brand new white belt, and you went up against a second-degree black belt, and he had no desire to train you whatsoever, his job was just to smash you, you would have no growth. You would have zero growth. If nothing else, you would be turned off to the process and you would leave, right? We cannot do that to each other in law enforcement. Our job is to make each other better. And you should be emulating what your school is producing in you, which is the drive to be a better person, to be a better practitioner, to deliver good fruit because it helps us overall as a school. As you make your training partners better, you're going to get better. Even if you're a second-degree black belt going up against a white belt, he's going to make your teaching ability better, right? He's going to make your ability to communicate better, your control better. And we should be doing that in law enforcement. So step by step, structure, everything should be listed out. We're not trying to sneak anything to the back door, and we're not going to rush the formula, right? Let's not rush the formula. Let's let the formula develop, and because you're going to see people take to it at different speeds, just like in a school. You'll see different cops that are going to take to it at different speeds. So it needs to be structured, and you need to be able to tailor that in different building blocks to say, how do I make this person better, get this person up to here, at the same time not stifling this person from growth, right? So instead of always teaching to the lowest common denominator, which is what cops say all the time, we just say we're looking for a denominator that we can push and go together. And we can have different variables from that, but our final goal is up here. And that's how we're going to get us there, is through building blocks, through structure.
I love it, man. I feel like that was beautiful. Thanks for kind of sticking through that thought experiment with me, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like there was a lot there. And hey, I've got a lot actually to say about what you said, but Zoom just told me we only got about 9 minutes left, and then it's going to kick us off. But I wanted to get into one last question, and then I wanted to hear a little bit about the program that you're doing. So, but one last question that I had for you, man. I know that you're a really spiritual guy, and you talked about it briefly earlier, and this is something that's really important to me as well. And I just wanted to ask you, like, how do you see martial arts helping your spiritual life? You know, we just talked about how it helps your career as a police officer. How has it helped you develop spiritually?
Bam, mic drop question. I love this question, right? This is really what fires me up. For my brothers and sisters in Christ, right? Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts is the physical embodiment of my spiritual walk, right? These are my physical manifestations, if you will, for my spiritual conflict. I can take these lessons that I learned from here and I can apply them. A lot of times when we walk into your church or your temple, you'll get these ideologies, these theologies, and you'll see them, and they just talk about the end results, where we can see you being, right? And again, the building blocks aren't there. I do like to say, I would say that you, as a person, you cannot underestimate your role. For Christians, you cannot underestimate your role in the body of Christ, and that we're given these spiritual gifts, but it's up to us to cultivate them and bring them into manifestation. So it's not this passive thing. You cannot learn jiu-jitsu on the sidelines. You can see it, but until you actually get to rolling, you don't know what that's like. You don't get, so getting comfortable in the physical pressure, and you're saying like, man, I survived almost losing my life today by being choked out. These obstacles that I'm meeting in my life, that I'm applying my spiritual theology to, I can directly connect those, right? And I can say, man, there are worse things in life. It brings a perspective in it. It makes it digestible and piece by piece. And so people think like once you become a Christian, life is dandy, or they may not say that anymore, but they think, okay, bam, I have everything that I need today to deal with all of the things that I'm going to encounter, you know, in the next 4 decades of my life. And that's not true. You're constantly in a state of growing, and you can choose to grow in the wrong direction, or you can choose to grow in the positive ones. But if you don't have a physical representation of what it's like to grow in a positive way, it could cause you to become embittered, right? You could be angry. You cannot like the process, right? And you have to love the journey. And you can say there are worse things in the world. If you think about this, if you look back to the problems that you had 2 years ago, do you still remember them, right? That March 27th, you know, I'm sure it was like a Thursday or whatever, and you thought the world was caving in because of whatever was happening in your life. Do you still even remember what that problem was, right? Or have you moved past that? And are you a different guy now than you were when you encountered that problem? So you're growing. And now, if you haven't taken self-ownership of some of that and brought some of your spiritual gifts into manifestation, you may be stagnant. You may be stagnant, but at least you're probably more accustomed to that constant pressure. I believe that we're destined for great things. Jesus said, "You will do greater things than I." And I'm like, man, how? I'm a wreck. How can you even say that, Lord? How can you even make that declaration that we're going to do greater things than you? And it's through growth, right? It's through faith. And it's as you grow and you have success, you have greater faith. And these successes belong to God, not to us, but you can get there. And as you are more confident in yourself physically, and you can see, oh, wow, there's a difference here. And as you start to encounter obstacles in your life, your spiritual life, and you start to get victory there, start to grow in faith, right? And so seeing the two come together is only going to make you more equipped for the things that you come.
That was beautiful, man. I love what you said, and resonated a lot with how I feel. It's almost like it's an allegory, you know, like martial arts is the allegorical translation for spirituality, for personal growth, for all these other things. It's like a blueprint, as I think, you know, we've all kind of felt. It's like a roadmap, or I don't know, whatever allegorically you want to think. And it's powerful, man. You know, and I love what you said about that quote from Jesus. That's one of my favorite quotes too, because it feels like a challenge. It's almost like you can, but as one of my favorite philosophers, Eliphas Levi, wrote, he said, "To do the works of Christ, you must be like the Christ." And Exactly. So I think
Yeah.
it's a challenge. It's almost like, yes, you can do these things, but what will that look like? You know, you got to walk the walk. You can't
Yeah.
just talk the talk. And man, it's powerful. So we only got a few minutes left, but I want to hear
Okay.
about this program you're doing. That's how we first intrigued. Our mutual friend Paul Beam introduced us, and I think he's in your program. So tell us about what's happening, and if people want to learn more about what you're doing, just tell them where they can go.
Right. So I'll be sure that I send you the couple links that Paul posted on social media so you can attach them to your page. But it's True North Men, right? And in this ministry, we're all about men bringing themselves into or working with themselves to know that we're destined for great things through, and that we have a responsibility to the body of Christ, to God, to ourselves, that we're going to grow, that we're not going to stay stagnant, that we're going to be these weeds that fall by the wayside. Parable of the sower, right? And you'll see the differentials there, but we need to be on good soil. So we need to surround ourselves with good soil, and then we need to cultivate that growth. So we're giving, if you look in Corinthians or Ephesians, you'll see these different spiritual gifts that we're given, right? The teacher, the apostle, the evangelist. You'll see these different roles that we have. Well, there's things that we can do to increase them, but we have to be able to recognize what those things are. So discernment, right? You need to be able to recognize, where does discernment fit in our role as a teacher. So we teach that portion of our leadership and our characteristics. And then for the other time, through this program that we're rolling starting out Saturday, we get into the physical defensive tactics portion for your life, to bring that confidence in on that side, to know that you can train yourself to be equipped with the things that go with you. If you kind of question, should I be there or not? Like, I would say, go back and look at what Paul says about the fighter, right? What Paul says about the boxer. And I think that'll help round that out for you. But we need to build confidence in all areas, spiritually, mentally, physically. We have to do this. You cannot sit on the bench and hope that everything is just going to come out perfect, right? We have an active role to live in our lives. So I'll send you those two things that you can attach. But if you go to True North Ministries, you'll see the dope double axe right there. True North Man Camp's coming back around in April, but we'll be unrolling this starting Saturday, and we're going to do one class for 6 months, for 6 sessions at a time. And there's a lot of things, like when we give you these leadership things, we want you to be able to digest them over the month. And we're going to put you through the ringer on the physical aspect side. So we want your body to be able to heal up so we can come back into the second one and hit it with the same fervor. But yeah, I love True North, man. I would say before I went to, I got to say this, before I went to Man Camp, I was a alcoholic, horrible alcoholic. And when it says like, give it over to God, and he'll burn it up, like, that's exactly what I want to happen. It's just like, boom, God took this from me. So he can do that in your life too. And we hope that we can help set that meeting up.
Brandon, that was amazing, brother. Hey, check it out. Zoom's about to kick us off. Check out the links down below to learn more about Brandon. And dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you, brother.
My honor, Paul. You be safe, sir.
Yep. We'll talk again soon, man.